Hello, learners. Let's learn chapter 6, that is from your class 8 English Honeydew. This is Jody's Fawn. In this video, I'll be taking part 1 and part 2. This is a touching story that tells us about a little child Jody and his consciousness. And this story moves around the emotions of Jody and his pure selfless thoughts. The story highlights values such as compassion, care, justice, and also concern of human beings towards animals. And this story is an extract that has been taken from the popular fiction The Yearling, written by Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings. Now, let us know about the writer. Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings. She was born on 8th August 1896 in Washington, D.C. She was an American author, lived in rural Florida. Her best known work, The Yearling, won Pulitzer Prize for fiction in the year 1939. It was later made into a movie. She died on 14 December 1953 in Florida. Now let's read the lesson and understand. This is Jody's Fawn. In this story, Jody's father has been bitten by a rattlesnake. Rattlesnake, it is a poisonous snake, right? He quickly kills a doe and uses its heart and liver to draw out the poison. Doe is a female deer. Draw out means to remove or to extract. Jody wonders what will happen to the little fawn left without a mother. Fawn is a baby deer. So here Jody's father was bitten by a rattlesnake which was very poisonous. In order to save his father, he quickly killed a doe. He used doe's heart and liver to draw out the poison. He could save his father, but unfortunately, the doe's baby, it was left alone in the forest without a mother. Right. So now let's move on to the part 1. Jody allowed his thoughts to drift back to the fawn. Drift back to means to go back to. He could not keep it out of his mind. He had held it in his dreams, in his arms. So here it refers to the fawn. He slipped from the table and went to his father's bedside. Penny lay at rest. Penny is Jody's father. His eyes were open and clear, but the pupils were still dark and dilated. So here dilated is enlarged. Jody said, "How are you feeling, Pa?" "Just fine, son. Old Death has gone thieving elsewhere." So here thieving is the act of stealing. "But wasn't it a close shave?" So a close shave, it's a phrase. It means a narrow escape. "I agree," Penny said. "I'm proud of you, boy, the way you kept your head and did what was needed." So here Jody's thoughts were all about the fawn, and his thoughts, it has kept him haunting his mind again and again. He was very sad. He was unable to keep the thought out of his mind. That is, he was thinking about the fawn which was left alone in the forest. He held it in his arms. So held it refers to the fawn in his arms. That is, in his dreams he held that fawn in his arms. He got up from his table and quietly went to his father's bedside. And Penny, his father, was resting at that particular time. His eyes were open and seemed clear, but the pupils were dark and enlarged. He asked his father how was he feeling. So his father responded that he was just fine, and he further added that it was a narrow escape from death which seems to have gone stealing somewhere. The death did not take away his life or steal away his life. It had gone away from him. Jody agreed. Jody's father, Penny, appreciated his son by saying that he was very proud of his son because he stayed very calm in a difficult situation and helped his father whatever was necessary at that moment. Pa, yes, son. Pa, do you recollect the doe and the fawn? I can never forget them. The poor doe saved me. That's certain. Certain means sure. Pa, the fawn may be out there yet. It might be hungry and very scared. I suppose so. Pa, I'm a boy. I'm a big boy now and don't need to drink milk. Why don't I go and see if I can find the fawn and bring it here? and raise it. Penny lay quiet, staring at the ceiling. Here, Jody asked his father whether he could remember the doe and the fawn. Penny replied that he could never forget the doe which saved his life. Jody makes his father aware that the fawn might be hungry and all alone in the forest, and it also might be very scared. His father agreed to it. Jody continues saying that he was a grown up boy and doesn't need to drink milk. By this he meant that he can give his share of milk. He asked his father if he could go and look out for the fawn to bring it to their place and wanted to raise it or take care of the fawn. He tells his father that it is their responsibility to take care of the fawn since they killed the doe. Penny lay quiet in his bed looking continuously at the ceiling. So now let us further read to know what does Jody's father say. Boy, you have got me hemmed in. Hemmed means dilemma. It won't take much to raise it, Pa. It will soon start eating leaves and acorns. Acorns are small brown nuts. You are smarter than boys of your age. We took its mother, and it wasn't to blame. Surely it seems ungrateful to leave it to starve. Son, I can't say no to you. I never thought I had lived to see another day. Can I ride back with Millwheel and see if I can find it? Tell your ma I said you can go. He sidled back to the table and sat down. His mother was pouring coffee for everyone. He said, Ma, Pa says I can go bring back the fawn. Here, now coming to Penny, he expressed to his son that Jody kept him in a dilemma. Jody convinced his father that raising the fawn wouldn't be a burden as it could drink Jody's share of milk and will soon grow up to eat leaves and acorns. His father appreciated him, saying how Jody was brighter and smarter than the other boys of his age. Jody further he expressed to his father that they took its mother and now it's the fawn that has to that was suffering over there in the forest because of them. And his father expressed how grateful it would be to let it starve and said that he couldn't say and said all these feelings to his father. So when Jody he told all this to his father couldn't say no to Jody because he never thought that he would be alive to see another day. So his father he did not think that he will see another day. That is, if that fawn that deer's liver and heart, if they were not extracted and if they were not used for Jody's father, Jody's father would have been no more. So it was all because of that fawn's mother, deer, right? Then Jody asked his father whether he could ride back with Millwheel and search for the fawn. Penny permitted Jody, but asked him to tell his mother about it before going to bring the fawn to their house. Jody went back to the table to be avoided from being noticed by his mother. At that time, his mother was pouring coffee for everyone. He said to his mother that has given permission to bring the fawn. Now let us hear to Jody's mother's reaction. She held the coffee pot in mid-air. What fawn? The fawn belonging to the doe we killed. We used the doe's liver to draw out the poison and save Pa. She gasped. Well, for pity's sake, Pa says it would be ungrateful to leave it to starve. Dr. Wilson said, That's right, ma'am. Nothing in the world comes quite free. The boy's right and his daddy's right. So he says that both are right, that they have to bring the fawn. And nothing in this world comes quite free. Millville said, He can ride back with me. I will help him find it. She set down the pot helplessly. Well, if you will give it your milk, we have got nothing else to feed it. So here Jody's mother was taken aback. She paused and held the coffee pot in the air and asked Jody about which fawn he was talking about. He informs his mother that he was talking about the fawn that belonged to the doe they killed to extract poison to save his father's life. Jody told his mother that father said that it would be ungrateful to leave the fawn to starve. And also, Dr. Wilson too expressed his views by agreeing that what Jody and his father said was right. He further said that they were right and nothing in this world comes quite free. That is, there is nothing you can't get from the world from, for a free of cost, right? They must pay something in return to the fawn. Melville volunteered to render his help by giving Jody a ride on his horse to find the fawn. Jody's mother heard all this and felt helpless and set down the pot. She was not in favor of bringing the fawn, but she agreed to them as they were right, and also Jody would give his share of milk, and they had nothing else to feed the fawn. Millville said, "Come on, boy, we have got to get riding." Ma Buxter asked anxiously, "You will not be gone long." Jody said, "I will be back before dinner for sure." Millville mounted his horse and pulled Jody up behind him. Mounted means sat on. He said to Millville, "Do you think the fawn's still there? Will you help me find him?" "We will find him if he's alive." "How you know it's a he?" The spots were all in a line. On a doe fawn, Pa says the spots are every which way. So every which way is in different directions. So here Millville asked Jody to come on as they had to ride on to the forest. Ma Buxter was worried and asked that they would go for a long time. Jody assured his mother that he would be back before dinner. Millville climbed on his horse and helped Jody sit behind him. Jody inquired Millville whether he would support him or help him in finding the fawn. Millville assured that they would find the fawn if it was alive. He further asked Jody that how he knew that the fawn was a male fawn. Then the fawn, here Jody says that the fawn had spots which were in a line, and he added that his father told him that a female fawn has spots going in a different direction. So female fawn will have spots in a different direction, whereas the male one it will have in a it will have in a line, right? So now let's move on to the next. So here we have completed part 1. Now let's move on to part 2. So in part 2, Jody gave himself over to thoughts of the fawn. They passed the abandoned clearing. Abandoned means lonely. He said, "Cut to North Millville. It was up here that Pa got bitten by the snake and killed the doe, and I saw the fawn." Suddenly Joe was unwilling to have Millville with him. If the fawn was dead or couldn't be found, he could not have his disappointment seen. And if the fawn was there, the meeting would be so lovely and so secret that he could not endure to share it. Now, part 2 explanation. Jody thought about the fawn. They crossed a lonely piece of land in the forest. Jody gave directions to Millville to turn to the north where his father was bitten by a rattlesnake. All of a sudden, Jody was unwilling to be with Millville. Why? He doesn't want Millville to be with him. There are two reasons. The first one is if the fawn was dead and not found, he would not like Millville to see his disappointment. And the second reason is that if the fawn was there, he wanted his meeting with the fawn to be so lovely and secret that he would not like to share with anyone else. He said, "It's not far now, but the scrub is very thick for a horse. I can make it on foot. But I'm afraid to leave you, boy. Suppose you got lost or got bitten by the snake too. I will take care. It might take me a long time to find the fawn. If he's wounded, leave me off right here." "All right, but you take it easy now. north here and east. There and there. That tall pine makes a bearing. So makes a bearing means acts as a compass and helps to identify directions. So long, so long. Millville, I'm obliged. So here, as Jody did not want Millville to be with him, he told him that the point where he saw the fawn was not so far, and said that the scrubs are very thick for the horse to go through. He informed him that he would go on by foot. Millville was a bit afraid to leave Jody alone, as what would happen to Jody if he got lost or bitten by a snake. Jody gives full assurance to Millville that he would take care of himself, and it would take a long time for him to search for the fawn if it had wandered in the forest. He told Millville to leave him nearby. Millville asked Jody if he is aware where the north and east was. Jody showed the directions to him, and he also said that the tall pine tree acts as a compass that helps in identifying directions. Millville says that the pine tree is so long, to which Jody agrees and expresses his gratefulness. Right? He waited for the sound of the hoofs to end, then cut to the right. The scrub was still. Only his own crackling of twigs sounded across the silence. He wondered for an instant if he had mistaken his direction. Then a buzzard rose in front of him and flapped into the air. Here, buzzard is, you can see the picture, it's a large bird like the vulture that eats the flesh of dead animals. He came into the clearing under the oaks. Buzzards sat in a circle around the carcass of the doe. Carcass is the dead body of the doe. They turned their heads on their long, scrawny necks and hissed at him. He threw his bow at them, and they flew into an adjacent tree. Adjacent is the nearby. The sand showed large cat prints, but the big cats killed fresh, and they had left the doe to the carrion birds. So what is this carrion birds? They are the flesh-eating birds. So Jody waited for the sound of hoofs to end. He made sure that Millville left the place. Then he went to the right side. The scrub was still. It was silence, and he could hear his own crackling of twigs. That is when he was stepping into that forest. In that forest, no, that small twigs. When he was stepping on those twigs, he could hear the crackling sound of the twigs. He wandered for some time and doubted if he had mistaken his direction. Then he saw a large bird which appeared in front of him and fluttered into the air. He came into the clearing under the oaks. Buzzards sat in a circle around the dead body of the doe. They looked at him with their heads that laid on their long necks, and hissed at him. Jody threw his bow at them, and they flew into the nearby tree. The sand showed the marks of large cat footprints, who had killed it very recently and had left the doe for the carrion birds. So these carrion birds, they are the flesh-eating birds. He parted the grass at the place where he had seen the fawn. Parted is moved or pushed aside. It did not seem possible that it was only yesterday. The fawn was not there. He circled the clearing. There was no sound, no sign. The buzzards cracked their wings, impatient to return to their business. So here clacked refers to made a short loud sound. He returned to the spot where the fawn had emerged. Emerged means came out, and dropped on all fours. On all fours means put his hand and feet like an animal, studying the sand for the small hoof prints. The night's rain had washed away all tracks except those of cats and buzzards. So here Jody separated the grass at the place where he saw the fawn the previous day. He couldn't believe it had just been a day. The fawn was not at the place where he had seen the previous day. He circled the clearing. There was no sign and sound of one. The buzzards made sound with their wings and were impatient to return. Jody began looking at the place where the fawn had appeared from and began looking at the small hoof prints in the sand. But the previous night rain had washed away all tracks except cats and buzzards. So now this is here ends the part 2, and in my next video we'll see part 3. Right? I hope it's clear to you all. Thank you, children.